Hi, welcome everyone. Today we're talking to Tim Phillips. He's the Vice President of Animal Defenders International, and we're going to talk about the incident on Sunday, what happened in Russia in a circus where two elephants are seen fighting with each other. The circus came with an explanation that the two elephants were jealous of each other, and it had to do with the coronavirus, that they're not used to people anymore. But Tim Phillips, you're an expert on circus animals, and when you saw this video of these two elephants, just to describe it to people really fast, you see, because we can't show the video, you see one elephant storming into, I think her name is Jenny, and she was storming into another elephant, Magda, and pushes her over, and she tries to stand on her somehow. What was kind of also a lot of people complained about it on social media, that you see to take that animal, Jenny, off of Magda, they're hitting her with sticks. What were your first thoughts, Tim, when you saw this?
Well, this isn't the first time that this has happened. ADI has actually filmed a very similar incident in a US circus where two elephants ran out of control and they started fighting each other. And these are wild animals and they've got wild instincts and they're kept in absolutely deplorable conditions. And that makes these incidents really an accident waiting to happen. And what you're seeing is these people with the bull hooks and the weapons beating these animals. And the reason there is so much violence in animal circuses, nothing like no violence like that has been repeatedly captured again and again in zoos or other areas where wild animals are kept as these animal circuses. And the problem is they have to dominate them and keep them under really, really close control. And how do they do that? They subject them to violence. And these two elephants have had an appalling life. They've been passed through at least three circuses that we know of. They were both caught in the wild at the end of the 60s and early 70s. So that's like decades living in chains, living in unnatural conditions. And they're going to be frustrated like any animals, and they're extremely powerful. And so the circuses are always waiting for these incidents to happen, because you could see in the circus ring yesterday, there was no protection between the audience and the elephants. That's why it was so dangerous. Mm-hmm. That's similar in many countries that still allow circuses, the United States, for example, and European countries that still allow it. And so this fight spilled over into the audience. And behind the scenes, we've filmed how these animals are trained, and they use electric shocks, they give them beatings. And what they're trying to do is make them so subjugated and so compliant and so afraid of their trainers that pretty much these trainers in public can clap their hands, pat them, tap them, wave a stick at them, and they'll do what they're told. But they're still big, powerful, dangerous animals. And so when they do go out of control, it's almost impossible to stop them.
Yeah, because like what you saw also, like Jenny was like on top of the other one, and the trainers for a second didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to get them apart. The circus itself came with an explanation saying it's a love quarrel. They were trying to get the attention of the trainer. They never mentioned captivity. What did you think of the statement of the circus? And also, what did you think about, because Russia investigates this only because there were humans involved, because there were visitors sitting in front, and they were almost like the elephant almost fell on them, and everybody had to run away from the circus. But do you think Russia also cares for the animals itself, or it's only because there were humans involved?
Well, that's really for the authorities to decide. Country after country at the moment, almost 50 have banned these sorts of performances. So the tide is turning against it, both with legislators and with the general public saying, no, we shouldn't have these magnificent animals. These animals are kept in an entirely deprived environment. Many circuses are traveling from place to place. They're setting up on what land they can find. They keep the animals in temporary accommodation. And the elephants are, for example, almost always chained up every night. That's barely able to move for 10, 12 hours at a time every single day. If you look at the satellite pictures of this particular static circus in Russia, there is nowhere where an elephant should be living in those images. It's just a mass of concrete in small spaces. So the elephants, for a start, are in completely the wrong space. So all of their natural instincts are being frustrated day after day after day. And if you pile on top of that, and we got hints of it in the footage, that these animals are subjugated and abused, they clearly weren't hesitating from using physical force to try and separate these animals. They moved to it straight away. If you combine those two things, this utter frustration of living, of nothingness, and of violence, then these incidents will occur.
And can you tell us something more, because you've seen aerial footage of that specific circus in Russia, like what it looks like from the top, and how many animals do they have? Do you know that?
I'm not certain how many different animals they've got at the moment. I believe they've got at least dogs, parrots, and these two elephants. What you can see is that it's a big concrete facility. It looks like any sort of stadium or arena. And you get this in the United States as well. These animals are often kept in the basement underneath, so they haven't even got natural light, many of them. I don't know if that's the case in this one, but I know it is in several of these static Russian circuses. So these animals, they have very small space to live in. They're living on concrete, and they're chained up, and they're not able to move. Elephants in the wild would travel for about 20 miles a day and would have a whole social structure and a family structure. And yes, they do have squabbles and problems between each other. And if you confine them like that, it's like confining any two humans. There will be days when they don't get on. If you make those two humans incredibly powerful and weighing 2 tons each, then you're going to have real danger, aren't you?
And yeah, exactly. And these two animals, Jenny and Magda, like you said, they were taken from the wild as babies, and they've been their whole life in circuses.
Yes, they have. So, it's a life of abject misery. They've been taken from the wild somewhere in Asia. We know they're Asian elephants.
Yeah, India.
They will have probably been captured, torn from their mothers when they were babies, because they're easier to handle. Their birth dates are given as 1969 and then 1972. They'll have been packed up for this animal slave trade in cargo containers and shipped across the world. And then they've been passed from circus to circus. As I say, we know they've been in a circus in Poland. We know they've been in a circus in Belarus. So it could be many, many more over the years.
And is there any chance that the outcome of this could be that animal welfare organizations like yourself could save these two elephants? Is there an outcome that could happen for Jenny and Magda instead of just an investigation? And that's it. Yes,
well, laws are being passed all over the world to ban the use of animals in circuses. And ADI is the organization who often steps in to try and enforce these laws. So, for example, in countries we've worked in, like Bolivia, Peru, Colombia, most recently Guatemala, where they've passed the law, but they don't have the infrastructure for these animals, then ADI goes in, we set up temporary facilities, we go in, and if the circuses are breaking the law, we go in with the police, we confiscate the animals. In Peru, for example, we rescued over 100 animals, and that included bears, lions, a tiger, mountain lion, and lots of monkeys. Mm-hmm. And then we have to steadily relocate those animals. Now, we've got a sanctuary for big cats. We've got over 40 rescued circus lions and tigers in our ADI wildlife sanctuary in South Africa. There are other sanctuaries in Europe and the US that specialize in elephants. So a home would certainly be found for them. The other thing is there would be zoos queuing up for these animals as well. Now, we may not want them to go to zoos. We prefer them to go to a sanctuary. But there would be places to home these animals. If Russia banned animals in circuses and said, OK, you've got 2 more years, 5 more years to use these animals, and then we're going to take them. The animals could be homed in some way. We can't guarantee a plan in advance for every single animal, but where it's happened, we found homes for these animals and we've given them a good life.
Yeah, because that's also an interesting point you make, because a lot of people watching this, it's very painful to see, but then To save these animals, you need to have a place for them. But like you said, you always have a zoo is still better than being forced to do tricks, being forced to stand on small things while you're such a big animal and being forced to do tricks. Is there any talk of a ban on the use of wild? A lot of countries have banned it already, the use of wild animals. You're based in England, we're based in Holland. Those two countries have banned it. And some countries are talking about it, like France. And top of my head, I don't know another country. But what is the status of Russia? Is Russia also? Are there any talks of banning the use of wild animals in circuses?
Yes, there's campaigners on the street have been campaigning. There's campaigners who've been undercover inside the circuses gathering evidence, and we've worked with some organizations out there lobbying. Russia is one of those countries where there is still a very strong and powerful circus industry. It's declining in popularity like it is elsewhere. But if you look at France and if you look at the UK, those were really powerful centres for the circuses. Most people consider the travelling circus originated in Britain. And, you just go back 20 years and there were suppliers in the UK supplying thousands of trained lions and tigers. There was people sending elephants into circuses in the US, to circuses in Asia and across Europe. That hub has gone completely. It declined to nothing eventually with public opposition, and we have a ban now, so there will never be these elephants and bears that we once saw in Britain on the road again. So it can happen everywhere. So we would encourage this to be the start of the next phase of getting rid of these circuses in Russia.
Yeah, and exactly what people, because these images went worldwide. People are, it's really heartbreaking to see, for both elephants, that one that fell down and the one that was attacking her. But it's basically it would be good news if it would be banned all over the world. Which countries? You're also very active in the United States. How close are they to banning wild animals?
It's moving forward in the United States. We're seeing some of the big animal circuses close. There's still elephants and bears on the road in the United States at the moment. Several states have already passed bans on wild animals in circuses. That is California, New Jersey, Hawaii. There's a ban just being discussed right now in Colorado at the moment, which would sort of clear over 100,000 square miles of America of this cruelty. And we're pushing to get federal legislation reintroduced in the current session. So we're optimistic. I think the public is behind us there. I would say awareness is perhaps still a little bit further behind in Russia, but it's coming.
Yeah.
And I think what we're seeing with all these different countries that are banning the use of wild animals, in particular in circuses, and some have banned all animals in circuses, is that they're all very different socioeconomically. It's not a case of sort of wealthy Western countries or poorer countries that are passing the bans. It's all sorts of countries. If you look at Bolivia and Peru, they're really two quite different countries. But if you compare those to the UK, to Singapore, to Taiwan, to Czech Republic, to Greece, to Portugal, Guatemala, Mexico, these are all really different countries, all people in those countries with different problems, with different issues and challenges. And they've all said, we should not be doing this at this time to wild animals, just in the name of entertainment. Those poor elephants, they've been torn from their homeland. They've been forced to live in chains. They've been beaten. They're fighting in a circus ring after being forced to do the same inane tricks that they do day after day. I mean, wouldn't anybody be frustrated with that life? And when they say, oh, they're a bit jealous of each other, or they're this or that, we can't blame it on the animals. Of course they have emotions, and that's going to make them unpredictable. But it's the people who've put them in that position. They're the ones responsible, not Magda and Jenny. The people who put them in that ring day after day after day, year after year after year, this miserable existence, and it's time it ended.
It's time to end it, and it's exactly what you said. They put the blame somehow on the elephants. So it was in their statement. We also posted it on the website. it's shocking that they so quickly said, oh, it's the elephants. Oh, they're jealous. Oh, they wanted the attention of the trainer. It's shocking that, well, it's logical, I think, but like, it's still shocking that they would say that. And I think it's also, we talked to One Voice many times, like they're also very active in Friends with circus animals. And they also say it's also when the public starts seeing it themselves and the public stops going to circuses is also when ends, like the use of wild animals will end. The public should not buy tickets to go to see these animals.
Yes, so there's no doubt that everyone can play their part in this. You know, they can share these videos on social media, they can educate people, they can spread awareness. And it's certainly a factor that if people don't go to these shows, then they're going to decline. They're not necessarily going to be eradicated because they prey on ignorance. They prey on people not knowing quite what's going on. And they're one of these industries which abuses and exploits animals, whilst actually preying on people who like animals. Another example is the cub petting industry and baby animals, people wanting to hold baby monkeys or lion and tiger cubs. And these things all go on elephant rides on holiday. They're actually preying on people who care about animals and misleading them into thinking there's this loving relationship. And there simply isn't. This is an abusive relationship. And one of the parties in it, the animal, is a prisoner.
Yeah.
And those members of the public, they wanted to go to that show. Those circus performers, the human performers who could carry that show in their own right. We can have circuses without animals. We're not against circuses. There was just two in the ring who didn't want to be there ever. And that was the two elephants. And they're the two who were dragged there from their home, thousands of miles away, to put on these shows for people.
Exactly. And I think people are slowly starting to really understand it, that like in order for an animal to do a trick, I mean, I have a cat and I can maybe say like sit is the most I taught her with candy, but that's it. But it's very unnatural for animals to learn these kind of tricks you see in circuses. So it's not sweet or cute. These animals are forced to do that.
Yeah, the training, ADI is the organization that's been behind the scenes. I've worked myself inside the circus industry gathering this evidence with ADI, but we have been in circus after circus inside the training centers with hidden cameras. And that's in Europe, that's in the US, that's in Latin America, and that's in Asia. And there are universal ways in which these animals are trained, and that is by violence. And one of the factors is with these wild animals, they're dangerous, they're powerful, and if they step out of line, you're really in trouble. And you got a taste of that with these two elephants, but it's the same with lions and tigers. And what you see during the training sessions is these animals being very severely abused. I mean, really savagely beaten. We've seen animals being electric shocked, elephants just being hacked at with metal bars, being beaten in the face with metal bars. And they're teaching them a lesson, which is, if you step out of line, I'm going to get you in line quickly.
Yeah.
And we've seen how one US elephant trainer, a very big one, someone who does elephant rides with children, so they really want those animals subjugated. They don't want them expressing themselves naturally at all. They want them under control. And we saw how they would pat the animals. And it looks like a friendly gesture. And then they'd electric shock or hit the animal. And so when they're out in public, they can give these animals these little taps, these pats. They look friendly, but actually it's a signal. You do that again, you're going to really regret it. Yeah. And these are intelligent animals. They do remember those things.
Yeah,
we're going through your cat.
She's like, she just woke up. But it's those animals we've seen undercover videos of that too. Those animals know, like, if this movement is coming, something worse is coming. So it's a scare tactic, like you said. I think people really, by now at the Animal Reader, we've seen so many undercover videos of this. It looks all like they have a really loving relationship, but it's completely based on being scared.
Yeah, and you can't minimize the impact of the sheer deprivation of these animals. They don't get to run and play. So a circus lion or a tiger lives in a space about the size of a queen-size bed. It's completely bare. A circus elephant tends to live on chains for about half of the day, and that means they can shuffle about 2 places paces forward and a couple of spaces back. And then sometimes they'll be given a little electric fence paddock. I mean, that's just like smaller than the worst zoo usually. So they have absolutely nothing. And the trainers control the food, any emotional or social contact with other animals. They've just got nothing. And if you consider those sorts of impacts of those levels of deprivation, what they would be on us as human beings, that would break us far faster than these circus animals. It actually amazes me that I've been into circuses and we've rescued the animals, and you see these lions and they look dead. They look like they've just given up, these lions and tigers, and they're sitting there and they don't even growl when you come. And then slowly they realize that they can be free, and we take them back to our sanctuary where they've got our minimum enclosure is 2.5 acres. So it's big space, it's natural Africa, and they can charge about, they can stalk, and they can play. And you see that they're in there all along. They're just sort of just shut down as a human would if they were in that kind of hostage situation.
Like us humans, even during the coronavirus lockdowns, like we went crazy in lockdowns, and that was just in most countries for a month, 2 months, and it's still with the freedom to walk to the supermarket, but we were going crazy. That is something.
This is true. I mean, people who've got about 1,000 channels on their television, they've got internet, they've got the luxury of a house, which kind of even the smallest human house is probably 10 times what these elephants have for their body size. You can go out and you can go out for a walk. The denial of the social contact, we've realized that how important that is to all of us, and how damaging that can be for our species. And it is for every other species. Yes. Elephants particularly are really social animals. You know, they need the whole family around them. And when these animals are alone, it's one of the worst deprivations. That can be worse than the beatings that they endure.
Yeah, and I hope that is something people will take away from all these lockdowns, that it's the same what we're doing to animals in a zoo, animals in circuses. What do you think the outcome? Russia is now investigating it. Like I said, they're mostly investigating because humans were involved. What do you think will be the outcome for Magda and Jenny?
Well, one would hope they'll be relocated to a sanctuary. I think the most likely outcome is that they'll be told to take more security precautions or something like that. What they should be doing is saying, this is 2021. We shouldn't have 2 elephants in a city centre living in an urban area and coming out and doing these ridiculous tricks in front of crowds without any safety measures and precautions. So really, if anything is fair, and especially fair for the animals, then they should close down this circus. Let them continue with the human acts. Circuses thrive with human acts. Some of the great circus performers are from Russia. They've got a great tradition of human performance. They really don't need these elephants. So retire them, do the right thing. They're almost fighting their way out. That would probably mean that they'll have to go to a zoo or to a sanctuary. I hope it's a really good sanctuary. If not, hopefully it will be an improvement. They'll get more daylight, more natural space, and so on. These things don't happen instantly. There is a big tradition of circus in Russia. So the thing is for people to keep raising their voice about it. You know, we're pushing for a European Union-wide ban now that, you know, there's a significant number of countries either banning circuses, animal circuses in Europe, and others committed to doing it. So we're pushing for that. Keep pushing for these bans in your own countries. Let's slowly get rid of this industry. It's an absolute relic of the past. It's from a time when people were just completely ignorant about the needs of animals, as they were about the needs of people too in that era. And these animals, they live in the most deplorable conditions. Most countries which still allow circuses wouldn't allow those conditions in one of their zoos. And because of the contact and because they're moving them out of transporters, they're moving them into the ring, they're putting them performing in unprotected spaces like we saw in Russia, then they have to dominate those animals, at least they perceive they do.
Yeah.
And so there will always be violence to these animals in a way that wouldn't happen if it was hands-off protected contact.
Yeah, true. I'm like you said, people should like force. I hope, like, of course, I hope like a worldwide ban would be amazing. But people should keep, every animal welfare organization says this, but keep signing petitions, keep asking your government to stop this, and things you can do yourself. And especially don't buy any tickets to go to a circus that uses wild animals. Do go to circuses that don't use wild animals. Thank you very much for your time, Tim, and good luck on, hopefully we'll talk to you again when there's a European ban. Let's start with that.
Let's hope so.
Thank you, and thank you everybody for watching.
Thank you.